Mercedes question. Let's first understand the meaning of this sentence. Mercedes E-Class that wore 4 oval-shaped headlights during the past 2 decades, a look that had become iconic enough for the Koreans to copy on the previous Kia Amanti and the previous Hyundai Sonata, is now boasting 4 parallelogram-shaped lamps that look modern but still make sense on an E-Class. Okay, so this sentence talks about the look of the Mercedes E-Class with respect to the headlights that it wears. So it first explains the headlights that this car, the Mercedes E-Class, wore in the past, that is during the past 2 decades. And then it explains that this look actually became iconic. That is the look that it had during the past 2 decades. This look actually became iconic enough for the Koreans to copy on the previous Kia Amanti and the previous Hyundai Sonata. Okay, so it became iconic enough for these guys to copy on these 2 different cars. Then it explains the headlights on this Merc E-Class in the present. That is, it now states that is now boasting 4 parallelogram shaped lamps that look modern but still make sense on an E-Class. So this sentence appears to communicate the meaning in a pretty effective manner. So now we'll go and look at the sentence from grammatical standpoint and see if we find any grammatical errors. So let's split this sentence into its individual clauses. Mercedes E-Class that, so that brings us to the next clause, that four oval-shaped headlights during the past 2 decades, a look that had become, iconic enough for the Koreans to copy on the previous Kia Amanti and the previous Hyundai Sonata, is now boasting. So that's another verb here, is now boasting 4 parallelogram shaped lamps that look modern, but still make sense on an E-Class. Okay, so we have about 4 clauses here, and let's look at all the subject verb pairs. Mercedes E-Class, that's the subject, and is now boasting is the verb here, and both agree in number. Then that wore, so that wore is the subject verb pair here. Here that refers to the Mercedes E-Class. So pronoun standpoint, it's correct. 4 oval-shaped headlights, a look that had become. So here that refers to the look, and that had become is the subject verb pair. And then that's about it. Okay, this in the non-underlined portion, that look modern, so that is the subject verb pair, but still makes sense. So here the second verb is connected using but. So from subject verb standpoint, all the subject verb pairs agree in number, they are accounted for, so there isn't any issue from that standpoint. So now this has 4 different clauses, so let's just look at the verb sequencing here. So the first verb here is that wore, so it's talking about the past, how the headlights looked in the past. So even though it's talking about the past 2 decades, and we know that the sentence later on talks about the present context, we don't really need to use past perfect tense because for this verb, because it's pretty clear that it's talking about the look that it wore during the past 2 decades. So the sequencing is pretty clear. Now let's look at this one, that had become iconic enough. So here past perfect tense has been used, and that's not correct, because only after the Mercedes E-Class wore these kinds of headlights during the past 2 decades, only after that this look became iconic enough. So by saying that look had become iconic enough, what we are saying is that had become happened before it wore the 4 oval-shaped headlights, and that's not logical. So this is an error here. Had become is not an earlier event, so we should not use past perfect tense for this event. It should be simple past tense. Okay, and then we come to the third verb here, is now boasting. So from this tense standpoint, it's correct. It's stated in present tense because it's talking about the current fact, but it unnecessarily uses continuous tense. I mean, it's not that this action is still taking place. It's not like Mercedes E-Class is boasting. So I mean that this use of continuous tense is not logical. I mean, we are simply stating a fact about the look of the headlights on the Mercedes E-Class in the present context of time. So we should simply state it using simple present tense. Now boasts. For parallelogram shaped lamps that look modern. So here look modern but still makes sense. Both of them are in simple present tense, and that's absolutely correct. So this sentence has two errors both are related to verb tenses. So we need to correct these errors in the sentence. And look here, there is a modifier as well, a look that had become. So a look that became, I mean, this is really a noun plus noun modifier, and it's basically modifying the previous clause, and it's basically picking up oval shaped headlights, and it's modifying this oval shaped headlights, and it's saying that this is a look that became iconic enough. So so from modifier standpoint, the sentence is correct. So the only errors that we have are from the verb sequencing and verb tense standpoint. So now we'll look at the answer choices and find out the correct answer. So let's read choice B. Mercedes E-Class that wore 4 oval-shaped headlights during the past 2 decades, which became iconic enough. So here, which illogically modifies the past 2 decades, and that's not correct. So we have modifier error here. Then let's look at choice C. A look that became iconic enough for the Koreans to copy on the previous Kia Amanti and the previous Hyundai Sonata now boasts. So here both the errors with respect to the verb tenses have been corrected, and so this sentence, and no new errors have been introduced. So this sentence appears to be correct. So we'll mark it as the correct answer choice, but we'll also eliminate choices D and E to make sure that the answer that we are selecting is absolutely correct. Choice D. A look that became iconic enough. So became, that's correct. Iconic enough for the Koreans to copy it. Okay, so here we don't know what this it refers to. I mean, we already know that we are talking about the look that became iconic enough for the Koreans to copy on the previous Kia Manti. I mean, we already have this one pronoun that refers to the look, and that's what we know, that we are talking about copying on the previous Kia Manti. But repeating this pronoun it, I mean, it now just brings into question as to what this it is referring to. So that's an error here. To copy it on the previous Kia Manti and the previous Hyundai Sonata now boasting. Okay, so we clearly know from our error analysis of the original sentence that is now boasting was the verb for Mercedes E-Class. So now by eliminating the word, the helping verb is, we no longer have this functioning as the verb. So now our Mercedes E-Class is left without any verb here. So that is an error here. So notice how Mercedes E-Class is in the non-underlined portion, but we have to make sure that its verb is in the underlined portion, because that's what we had discovered in our error analysis, that its verb was actually split. There was a clause between the subject and its verb. So now we have to make sure that the underlined portion still contains its verb. So choice D is not correct. Let's look at choice E, becoming iconic enough. Okay, so what? So I mean, it changes the structure of this modifier, a look that became. We knew that a look that became is the correct modifier here, but now let's see. Mercedes E-Class that wore 4 oval-shaped headlights during the past 2 decades, becoming iconic enough for the Koreans to copy it. So it's converting it into a verb ing modifier. Okay, it's not that bad here. To copy it. Okay, so we again see this pronoun this pronoun here, and it's not required, and in fact it's ambiguous. So we have that error. It on the previous Kia Manti and the previous Hyundai Sonata, and now boasting. Okay, so again the same error as we found in choice D. Boasting is no longer the verb for the subject Mercedes E-Class, and then furthermore, the sentence has unnecessarily made becoming and now boasting parallel when there is no need to show that parallelism. So this sentence has multiple errors. So really, we have been able, by doing process of elimination, we have been able to figure out that choice C is indeed the correct answer choice.